Okay, Jacob Collier, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you so much for having me.
In about 4 months, in December, you'll be back in Australia, first time for a few years. What are your memories of the last tour?
They were some of the most stupendous shows of the whole year of touring, and I have glowing memories of that part of the world. I'm so extraordinarily excited to return. There's something about the audiences, I'm not sure how to put it, but there's a visceral joy that tends to arise in those venues in that part of the world. So I'm absolutely raring to go.
Yeah, you're coming down with your Jessie tour. Jessie is a four-part album project of which you've released three so far. If we go way back, how and when did the original concept come to you?
Oh gosh, well I created an album. My first album that I ever created was an album called In My Room, which I created in this very room in London town. And I did everything on that album by myself. I recorded the instruments and mixed the album, and I even toured the album as a one-man show. And what I wanted to do with this Jessie project was to kind of expound that universe and create the most collaborative possible extravaganza. So the idea with Jessie was to have four different musical worlds, different musical universes that people could enter into collaboratively and in terms of being an audience member as well. So the first album, Jessie Volume 1, is very much orchestral. The second one is very much based in sort of acoustic folk sounds. Jessie Volume 3 is, I suppose, closer to pop music, and Jessie Volume 4, which is soon to come, is a kind of combination of all of those different forces. So in total, there's about 40 different collaborators across all different parts of the world, different genres, different styles, different stories, different voices. But I've been really honoured to kind of learn firsthand from a lot of my most favourite musicians and real heroes of mine, and it's been a massive, massive project that's really taught me so much.
Yeah. Were you writing one project at a time, one album at a time, or were you doing little bits of each along
I
the way?
think it's healthy as a creative person sometimes to hop between projects, and so I really enjoyed at first writing them all at the same time. Now I've only got one left to write, so I'm kind of focusing more on that one. But yeah, it's a great big sprawling kind of set of ideas.
Yeah. A lot of your fans know, but a lot of people don't know. The name Jessie, where did that come from?
Well, my name is Jacob Collier, and so J and C combined gives you JC, which is a lot of what my best friends in the world call me JC. It's like my nickname. So JC became Jesse, a kind of stylization of that, and it became this almost like a character that was embarking on this crazy musical journey.
Yeah. You play so many instruments and work so brilliantly with technology. Was it difficult to merge it all into one focused stage show? Because the options would have been endless, really.
For sure. Yes, I find creative infinity is one of the obstacles that I face. I find that with a stage show, you're limited by a few things. One is a physical space, and the second is songs. And so I found when creating this live show that the different songs I wanted to play in the show gave the show form. There's six of us on stage, which is a real step up from the one-man show that I toured with for a while. But there are over 100 musical instruments on the stage, so we all tend to move around and play lots of different things at different times to kind of create this conversational, ever-evolving, multi-genre animal.
Uh, because of the way you record, layering sounds and textures, is it a challenge to arrange that music for the stage?
Well, it's a fun one. I would say it's a challenge. We all sing on stage, which is great fun. So we got some sort of juicy six-part harmonies, which is really what I was first attracted to as a musician, was chords and harmony. And so that's the kind of the bread and butter of a lot of the arrangements. And then around that, we build other instruments. But one of the tricks is, how to do all of that without using a ton of clicks and playback and pre-recorded things. So a lot of the show is very much improvised, and it's a very kind of raw and visceral, real-time experience. But I think my favourite thing about the show is that it involves the audience so much, and audience members tend to sing and clap and stomp and do all sorts of things that really bring so much to the songs, each in very different ways.
Yeah. How did you find your band members for this tour?
Oh, I looked far and wide. Because when you tour, it's about 5% jam and 95% hang. So it's fun to find people who are fun to be around and that you want to learn from and that inspire you to be a human, because that's where all the music comes from. But obviously on stage they have to be able to do many different things at once. So I really kind of dug into the soils of communities I really respected, asked lots of people I knew, and eventually found this crazy bunch of people.
Yeah. Who's been influential on you from a performance perspective? How did you learn the dynamics of performing a show, or is it just totally instinctive?
I feel like I'm learning all the time, but I do have very specific memories as a kid of watching videos of Bobby McFerrin doing his one-man show. And I don't know if you see any videos of that, but it's totally remarkable the way that he does it. He has a way of using the audience as a musical instrument almost. He plays them like an instrument. And he just sits on the stage with one microphone and the music just unfurls. And it's such a magical thing. And I remember seeing that and thinking, that's possible. It's possible to do. Not so much, I am a performer and you are an audience member, but we are collaborating on the music, and then every time we do so, it changes. And that really stuck with me. Another musician I really absolutely adore and respect is Freddie Mercury, who very famously in the Live Aid concert in, I think, 1985, he did this crazy call and response with the audience, where he sort of went, whoa, and they went, whoa, And there's something about that which really stuck with me as well. So I love the call and response. I love the idea of playing the audience as an instrument, and I'm developing lots of different techniques as to how an audience can be involved within the show. Whereas I think when I started, I thought of the live performance setup as quite a performance vehicle. I present a show to you and you listen. I think I've really fallen in love with the idea that we're always connecting and we're always collaborating.
Yeah, you mentioned Freddie Mercury. You played Wembley the other night with Coldplay and Natalie Imbruglia. How was that gig?
Last night, yeah, that was crazy. It was very unexpected. I only heard about that about 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and I got a call from Chris Martin, and he said, "Hey, are you around later? Would you like to come and sing a couple of songs on stage?" And I said yes. And Chris is a very, very spontaneous musician in that way, but he's also very magical indeed. So I had true faith in him that he would pull it together, and he did. It was crazy. I've never played to a crowd of 90,000 people before. That was a first for me.
Yeah. Have you ever imagined what kind of artist you might have been back in the day without technology?
I've thought often about this. It's such an interesting time to be creating things because of the amount of options that there are available, especially with technology. And I think, say, 500 years ago, the limitations were far more pervasive, I suppose. You had very specific musical instruments that did very specific things, and there were only specific elements of society which kind of enabled or even funded musicians to be creative. So I think it is a very wonderful time to be creating. I can't think of a better time, to be honest.
Yeah. With so many elements and layers in your compositions, you're in the home studio now, which can be a blessing and a curse. Are you good at knowing when a song is done?
That's a tricky equation to solve. I find myself often thinking about new ways to sort of polish a song, even way after everything's been recorded and put in place. So I think in some ways you have to kind of follow your goosebumps and just trust that you'll end up in the right place at the right time. But yeah, sometimes you have to take a song out of the room and put it in your car or something and drive around and think, does it feel good hearing the rumble of the road and just seeing things of the world around you? Because, music needs to live in the world. It can't just live inside a studio or inside your imagination.
Yeah. Your drummer, Christian, apart from being a great drummer, has a lot of sounds programmed into his SPDX that he triggers during the show. I believe you program those sounds. Do you enjoy that programming technology part of the show as much as performing?
I adore it. I find that the back end of the show is equally fascinating to the front end, and yeah, Christian is a total superstar, and we really enjoy that challenge of providing a kind of production element to the shows without it all being on track. So we have a lot of wacko sounds that Christian triggers. Sometimes it's kicks and snares and hi-hats, but other times it's kind of like raccoons and roosters and babies crying, all sorts of funny old sounds that come out at spontaneous times. And sometimes you hit a pad and you get one sound, and sometimes you hit a pad and you have a set of rules that is triggered by that pad, and it could be one of 50 sounds that comes out. So we like to find ways to keep ourselves on our toes.
Yeah. You've won 5 Grammy Awards. Tell me about your Grammy Awards experiences. What are your memories of the shows, and who did you get to meet?
Well, it was totally ridiculous and surreal from day one. I never really expected something like that would happen, especially from my first album, which was the album I created that I mentioned before, In My Room. And I was nominated for these 2 Grammys, and I went along to the ceremony, and I ended up winning both, which is very, very strange and very wonderful and unexpected. I feel like at the Grammy Awards, every single person has some semblance of, what the heck am I doing here? Because everyone knows what it takes to be a songwriter or a creative or an arranger or an engineer, and those skills are often very inward. And so I think that an event that's so outward in that way can be slightly jarring, but also so celebratory and joyous if you don't take it too seriously, Legendary
artists like Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, Quincy Jones have come into your life. Sadly, Chick is no longer with us, but how have those musicians impacted on your music?
Well, they've impacted so much further beyond when I met them in my life. You know, I encountered Chick and Herbie and Quincy when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and for 19 or 20 years prior, they had been my greatest mentors just as a listener to their music. And so getting to ask them questions, you know, how do you approach this? How do you think about this? What makes you laugh? What makes you cry? Where do you see the future? You know, it's such a deep privilege to be able to just pick people's brains who have had to do so much deep problem solving on every conceivable level of being a human, you know, growing up and evolving as the world evolves, and challenging the status quo, and moving through challenges. You know, I find myself, you know, going through lots of the processes that one goes through as you know, an emerging musician, really drawing from their advice in those situations, and a lot of the time it's really courage to be yourself, you know, to do things the way that you want to do them, and that being the only possible way of creating not just a sustainable career, but a sustainable life force.
How fussy are you with your gear choices? I know you use Taylor acoustic guitars and Shure microphones. Do you try out a lot of gear before you arrive at your final choices?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm naturally particularly picky about gear. In this room, I created music, well, since the first day of my life, I've been making music in here in North London. And I had one microphone until I was about 19 years old, which is called an SM58 Shure microphone. It's a very bog standard mic. You'll find it at any old open mic. And so I had this one mic and not very many instruments to begin with, just a piano and a guitar. But I was so determined to make music with it that I always found solutions. You know, and sometimes it takes a lot of time and patience, but I find myself really enjoying the challenge of creating with little. And now I'm at a stage in my musical life where I'm able to imagine things in slightly higher resolution, you know, with access to more gear and things like that. But if it makes you feel good, then it is good. And that's the end of the story.
Yeah. Where did your love of exotic instruments come from?
Well, I've always sought out sort of sounds that take me by surprise. I think partly because music echoes life in so many ways. The joy of hearing a sound, you think, what is that sound? That's crazy. I've never heard anything like that before. That, as a listener, is an experience I seek out. And so as a musician, in reverse, I also seek it out. And so growing up, you know, I didn't have a huge number of instruments here, so I would use all sorts of strange things, saucepans and badminton rackets and marbles and sorts of things in the house that really made genuinely great sounds, but wouldn't necessarily be classified naturally as, oh, that's definitely a musical instrument, you know. But I think there's something nice about making music that feels like your life, and I think that using things that are in your life can really help that cause.
Yeah. You collaborate with so many different artists. Do you have a bucket list of collaborators you want to get to?
I do indeed, yeah, absolutely. Three people on that list are Kendrick Lamar, Rosalia, and the Bulgarian female choir of television and radio. And I don't know if you've heard those, but they are about 40 women from Bulgaria who sing these crazy cluster chords that you've never heard anything like it in your whole life. It's so special.
Yeah. But what's the grand plan for Jacob Collier?
Not to plan so far ahead that I have no time to play, I would say. But I have so many sort of big and wild ideas. Most of them are borderline impossible. And so I find myself sustained and entertained perpetually by dancing with things that, you know, are half within my wheelhouse and half not. I always seek a challenge. So I hope to just keep on, as I say, following those goosebumps and finding myself in situations that really push and challenge me. And I find traveling the world to be one of the most joyous environments in which to do that. And where better than down under? It's extraordinarily exciting to be coming back so soon.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to apart from performing?
Well, the natural world is unlike anything else down there. And so I'm hoping to perhaps drive out of the cities and have a chance to really explore the big wide world around it, because I feel like so much of the culture and the people and the sounds of that place come not necessarily even from the cities, but from that vast, expansive world around it. So if I can muck about in that world for a little bit, I'll be very glad indeed.
Yeah. Well, Jacob, we look forward to seeing you down here very soon, and it's been great to chat.
Thanks so much. Likewise. Cheers, Greg.